I would like to speak a little bit with you about your interests and what you are doing. I remember your presentation 1 year ago in Prague. If you remember,
All right. Yeah, yeah.
you have been here in Lucerna and talk about your book and your interests. So maybe we can a little bit continue on the position because I remember it shortly because my friend was there and make a interview and some presentation on our website. So I remember you had the new book, and the question I have for you, maybe we can say, what is the news from the last year you get for now? What's your new experience you get from the last year?
Well, in fact, I put it together in another new book. It's coming out in November called "Everything You Need to Know But Have Never Been Told,"
Yeah.
which is explosive. Explosive not just because of the number of subjects that it fits together and exposes, but also because of the politically correct environment in which it's coming out. You
Mm-hmm.
know, controversial
Yeah.
is not standing still. Explosive is not standing still.
Mm.
As freedom of speech is being ever more eroded and targeted, which
Yeah.
we can talk about in more detail, I'm sure, because it's becoming more and more blatant.
Yeah.
And what is even considered controversial
Yeah.
now would not have been some time ago. So the
Yeah.
environment has changed because
Yeah.
there's a a, a campaign globally
Mm-hmm.
of turning the very foundation of human freedom, which is freedom of speech,
Mm-hmm.
to the new evil.
Yeah.
And you can see how the psychological game is being played in places like America,
Mm-hmm.
because what's happening is more and more freedom of speech is being equated with the far right and
Mm-hmm.
some kind of fascist agenda.
Yeah.
So you have, for instance, this grouping which expresses itself in many countries now, called Antifa,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a proxy army for the 1% to delete freedom of speech from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's targeting freedom of speech events and freedom of speech protests in America and targeting them violently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a an extraordinary inversion of what the left in politics and what you might call the liberal left
Mm-hmm.
used to stand for, which was freedom of expression, freedom of thought, um, freedom of opinion,
Mm-hmm.
is now being used as the vehicle to um, to target all the things it once claimed to stand for.
Mm-hmm.
And alongside this Antifa expression of the demonization of freedom of speech, you now have these internet giants like Google, YouTube, owned by Google, and Facebook, etc. Twitter's increasingly going down the same road, where they are using the excuse of hate speech and fake news
Yeah.
to install algorithms that stop alternative expressions or versions of the world to be highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some they are outright banning, but their main method is to push them down the order, so that people see them in fewer and fewer numbers. What you have now is the algorithmic manipulation of the search engines, the algorithmic manipulation of Facebook to stop alternative opinion from circulating, so that another basic human freedom can be expressed, which is people looking at something and deciding what they think of it.
Yeah.
So all these things, and there are many others, are coming together to target and demonize freedom of speech, which is something I predicted in my books long, long ago. For this reason, if you want to control the perceptions of the population, the global population, which is what the whole foundation of human manipulation is founded on, the manipulation and imposition of perception, because from perception comes everything. What we do, we don't do, what we support, what we don't support, what we challenge, what we don't challenge, all comes from our perception of that situation. What we question and what we don't question comes from the perception of that situation. So perception is the stadium on which this game, if you like, is played out. And of course, people reach their perceptions from information received. It may be information from a personal experience, or in the vast majority of cases, perceptions come from information received through various media sources. If you can emphasize one source and one way of looking at something, and suppress or delete other versions of looking at the same thing, then you are going to massively manipulate the perceptions of the population. And so, if you look at the Las Vegas shooting, um, there are so many holes in it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, blatantly so. I mean, when we've reached the point where Fox News programs from the American mainstream are actually saying, what the heck is going on here, with the changing official narrative from day to day and extraordinary things going on, then you know that you're looking at a situation which is massively full of holes and doesn't stand up to any scrutiny. But if you go onto Google now, you will not get the variety of views of that shooting in
Yeah.
the top and leading pages of the search list that you would have done before this all started. And ironically, of course, and it was all coordinated, it came in the latter part of the Trump election campaign, when suddenly, in the most blatant coordination, these media organizations, including the mainstream media itself, ironically, the very home of fake news, started coming up with this term, fake news, fake news. We've got to do something about fake news, fake news. And they started then justifying the manipulation of algorithms to suppress what they called fake news. Now, fake news, news stories that are not correct, comes from all expressions of the media, of course. But that wasn't the reason. They're not interested in suppressing fake news, because the mainstream media is overwhelmed by fake news it puts out every day. The game is to use that excuse to suppress non-fake news that's factually based and puts another version of the world in front of people. And since they started that in the latter part of the Trump campaign with the fake news excuse, they've now gone into the hate speech excuse, and they're adding more and more layers of excuses to target information that challenges the official narrative. So this is something in the last year that has become more and more obvious, and there's a good reason for that. You know, as I've gone around the world in this world speaking tour, it's become more and more clear that more and more people are questioning what they're told because of the information put out by the independent media year after year after year after year. And this is the system's reaction to that,
Mhm.
um, trying to suppress that information from circulation. And one other thing, of course, is that the alternative media around the world has funded itself, often meagerly, but funded itself with income from YouTube advertising
Mhm.
based on the number of hits that the videos have got over the years. Now, in alongside all this fake news, hate speech excuse for suppressing information from the alternative media, has come this what they call demonetization of those videos with that information. And what they've done, and it was again coordinated so obviously, um, the Times newspaper in Britain came out with a story. Major advertisers are having their advertisements on jihadi hate sites, and these people are making money from the advertising. And then immediately, these major corporations came out together and said, "We can't have this. We must." I mean, have they not noticed before? And as a result of that excuse, not just so-called, you know, hate sites and terrorist supporting sites have lost monetization of their video content, so as the alternative media in its almost in its entirety on a massive scale, because they know that they will damage the ability of people to research this full time if they do that. So, all in all, one of the great um, uh, the great obvious themes of the last year has been attempts to destroy the independent media.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I found we published I think it's 1 month ago on our website translation of the story I found on CNN, and they make some short video about fake news that are created in the east state in the east country. I found I think the name is so wait just checking the checking the video. Oh, I don't. I see it. It's not important, but there is one city on the east where that is really specialized in this situation. So they have whole houses where sitting people in the dark and creating fake news on the demand from American corporations or other anonymous people who say, "Oh, great, this news because we have a better position in future election and so and so." And it's really crazy because when they ask for these people, "Why do you do this?" and they say, "Because of money." It's all because of money, because of control, because of money. For me, it's not important if it's fake or true. I know that this is fake, but I see that the people are reading it, and we have good income from this, from the advertising, as you said. It's great, as you said. The problem is then when they say fake news, the topic is common in Czech Republic too. Fake news, what to do with the fake news? Censor it or not? You know? So now in the this week we will vote for the next year. So the our parties say in the program, oh you voting for the fake for censoring or not? So and I say why censoring? Censorship is not good, but this is, yeah, you were right. This is big topic for the now.
Well,
Uh,
there's two areas where money is distorting uh,
mm,
the information that people receive.
yeah.
One is the mainstream media,
Yeah,
whereby advertisers pay for it.
yeah,
For instance, if you go to America and you watch mainstream American television, the number of drug advertisements from the pharmaceutical cartel is ridiculous.
mm-hmm.
There's so many of them. I mean, the amount of money that the pharmaceutical cartel put into the American media is extraordinary. Now, given that fact, that same media is not going to then expose the outrages of the pharmaceutical cartel. It's going to push vaccinations, it's going to push drugs, because that's fundamental to its income. So there,
Yeah,
that one example alone, you have dispensed with independent journalism, and but it goes obviously far deeper than that. So advertisers have driven the content of news programs and other
yeah,
programs for a long time. But there's another area too that we see in what is laughingly called, this part of it anyway, what is hilariously called the alternative media.
yeah,
And these are websites that exploit the exposure of events and the um, the unraveling of the lies of the mainstream media by themselves telling lies that they know are not true to justify some headline in
mm,
which people who are awakening to the fact that the world is not telling them the truth through the mainstream media, these headlines are targeting those people
mm-hmm.
so that they will click onto the story. And when they click onto the story, that website gets advertising revenue. And what is really, you know, quite depressing, really, for people like me, is when you see a headline which is, like I say, designed to entice someone who's interested in alternative ways of looking at things to click onto the site. The text in the story then, in absolutely no way whatsoever, justifies the headline. It's just obviously made up. There are no
Yes.
sources.
This is the headline must click as must.
Yeah, and what's depressing is the number of people who've clicked on a headline, seen the text where it doesn't in any way justify the headline in any way, shape, or form, and then they share it with other
Yeah,
people who
yeah,
click on it
yeah,
to
yeah,
give
yeah,
that
yeah,
site
yeah, yeah.
revenue. That we really do have to wake up. And you know, one of the greatest forms of mind control, which is what perception control um, is falling for the trap of being told what you want to hear. And people, whether they go to mainstream sources or alternative sources, alleged alternative sources, fake alternative media, not the genuine variety, um, they fall for this trap of being told what they want to hear. And on one side, you've got the people that look at the mainstream media. They will have political views, they will have economic views, they will have racial views, etc. And if you tell those people information that fits with those views, they're they're almost certainly going to believe it. You don't even have to justify it with facts or anything. They'll
Yeah.
believe it. Why? Because they want it to be true.
Yeah.
And then you go to the alternative media, um, this non-genuine expression of what they call the alternative media, and you'll see headlines and made-up stories that are telling that audience what it wants to believe
Yeah.
about this person or this situation. And I'll give you two examples. There's one notorious website which I expose in this latest book in November, and uh, so has one mainstream newspaper in Britain as well, which has this a technique where it deathbed confession.
Mm-hmm.
It's done a deathbed confession on a British uh, security agent on
Yeah.
his deathbed, saying that he played a part in the murder of Princess Diana,
Yeah.
and
I hear about it.
shared all over the place. And of course, the agent didn't exist; they made him up.
Ah.
And then you have uh, another one talking about the Kennedy assassination or some sort of assassination like that in America, and they do the same technique with the headline "Deathbed Confession Agent Says," and then the text with no supporting evidence, um, with a guy that doesn't exist, then fails to justify the headline. But people share it all over the place, and that website makes a great deal of money from that. In fact, on one of those stories, it actually used a picture of someone in a hospital bed with wires or tubes coming out,
Yeah.
um, portraying that man to be this agent they're talking about. That picture was actually taken from an Australian news website from years before,
Yeah.
and it was of a man in a news story who was suffering from asbestosis. And the story was about the fact that he could not make himself heard to nurses, and therefore called the police from his mobile phone on his bedside to say, "I'm in hospital and I can't get anyone to hear me." So that was the story. So what this website did was take the picture from that story, put it on their made-up
Yeah.
story about an agent confession on his deathbed, and claim that that was the agent. And of course, it doesn't take long when you research these things
Yeah.
to make it obvious what's happened and the fact the story is a lie. But by this nonsense all over the internet, and funneled large amounts of money to this website that's doing nothing more than
Yeah.
exploit those genuine people who've dedicated their lives to putting out genuine, factually based information, to expose what's really happening in the world and to challenge the official narrative. It's beyond disgusting, and people need to get streetwise to it and stop falling for it as they do.
You're right. I think it's about two things. First, there are so informations that we feel that are something some way changed, that are not true. For example, a story about Diana, a story about JFK. So we feel inside there's some lie, but we want to find the real truth. So when someone puts the headline, yeah, I know how the story was in the real. So we click it because we are looking for the truth. But as you said, sometimes it's totally fake it, and but in the inside myself, I feel when I see something like that, I want to say, maybe someone find the truth. This is one thing, and the second
Well,
thing.
the website I'm talking about won't find the truth. That's for sure, because
Hmm?
it's exploiting the making up of information to fill its coffers with money. But so you know, it's this the antidote, the cure for this, if you like,
Hmm?
whether it's the mainstream or
Yeah,
whether it's the alleged alternative, because it's not really that, is to get yourself streetwise and to ask questions. You know, people need to look at the mainstream and ask questions like who benefits from me
yeah,
believing
you're
this.
right.
Look at whether there are facts to support what's being claimed, because um, when you look, for instance, at this Russian, or
Hmm.
Russia hacked the election, Russia did this, Russia did
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah,
I burnt the toast, it's the Russians. You look at their sources, they have no sources.
yeah,
What they
yeah.
say is, my sources tell me.
You
Well,
know, anonymous sources, near sources by my side, but I don't tell your name or something.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and there are cases when you put out information and you can't name the source, um, because of what would happen to the source. Of course, those things happen,
yeah.
but there has to be uh, some factual basis and other informational basis
Mm.
to what you are putting out as how things are,
Mm.
as well. But in the case of what we're talking about, the Russian manipulation of well, everything, it seems, um, there is no other information or other um, source of confirmation, or at least leading us
Mm.
in that direction. There isn't. It's all made up, and so people, they talk about, well, more than ever before now in modern times, about censorship. We must censor this. We must ban that. That's not the answer.
Yeah.
It's not the answer for the mainstream fake news, because it's a simple thing. Once you say that freedom of speech is something that the authorities decide upon, you can
Mm.
say this, but you can't say that. There is no freedom of speech.
Yeah.
This is the point.
Yeah.
You can't be a little bit pregnant, and you can't have a little bit of free speech. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that um, there shouldn't be consequences for people who say certain things, um, like calling on people to do terrorist acts or to
Yeah.
to engage in violence. But there's already laws against that.
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
They already exist. Those consequences exist.
Mm-hmm.
Once you say at the point of delivery,
Mm-hmm.
you can't say this and you can't say that, that means someone is deciding what people can say and what people can't say. And does anyone really believe, are we so naive as to think that the authority that's deciding that is not going to decide what can be said and not said on the basis of what suits it? And that's what we're seeing now,
Mm.
in with Google, with Facebook, with YouTube, and all this theme and this area, with someone deciding what people can hear and what people can't, what people can say and what people can't, and that's a tyranny. So
Yeah.
whether it's the mainstream or whether it's the fake alternative, then the way of dealing with it is not censorship, it's people becoming streetwise so that they can see it. So in terms of this website and others like it that just make up stories and exploit the alternative media audience to make money from it. um, the thing is, once you've clicked on a headline and you see that the text does not justify the headline, and it's basically
Yeah.
made up, you never ever click on a
Share,
story
share
that
a
would
like
say
and so
you certainly never share one,
yeah.
and therefore that you cut off their revenue stream from exploiting you.
Yeah.
With the mainstream media, we've seen that more and more. Um, the audiences for mainstream media, whether they be newspapers or whether they be like the television networks in America and elsewhere, have been falling and falling and falling because people don't want to hear it anymore because they don't trust it. Do any
Mm.
poll in almost any country now and ask them, do you trust your mainstream media?
No.
And there'll be a great
This,
reaction saying no. So this is how we deal with it,
yeah.
not not by censorship, but by people being streetwise and by people that call for violence against others to
Hmm.
be dealt with by the law that already exists. We don't need any
Yeah.
more censorship laws. What needs censorship laws is that cabal that wants
Yeah.
to get us to think a certain way by giving us information that makes us think like that, and suppresses and deletes information that would get us not to think like that.
That was my next question. What do you think? Who is behind? Because it's a few days ago, I translated some part from the new book of Stephen Green. Maybe you know, and he was exposing some CIA documents about censorship and control the basic mainstream media in the USA. So you see, if you read it, you see that they do it. They are doing the UFO and some controversial topics, Joe. So what do you think? Is it about some censorship about Illuminati and if these controversial topics we are interesting in, so alliance and so, or
Yeah, I'll be talking about this at length in Bratislava very
yeah,
soon.
yeah,
Uh, the reason I speak all day in those talks from 10 in the morning till 10-ish in the evening is because there's so many different subjects and dots to connect so
yeah,
that the picture becomes clear of what's happening and what's behind it. But if we bring it down just to the world that we see, or the world in the shadows too, the way this manipulation of human society, the incessant centralization of power, the incessant deletion of freedoms, the incessant imposition of surveillance and control, the way it's coordinated is through a web of secret societies, semi
hmm,
secret organizations, and the corporations and government agencies that we see in the world of the scene. And if you if you think of a spider in the center of the web, that's where it's coming from ultimately. And it comes out through the web. First of all, the strands of the web around the spider are the most exclusive secret societies that even most other people in the web have no idea exist. Then you come further out the web into the web from the spider, and then you hit the secret societies that we do know about: Freemasons, Knights of Malta, Knights Templar, the inner circle of the Jesuit order, and so on and so forth. And then you reach a cusp in the web, the cusp organizations, I call them, where the hidden meets the seen. And these organizations are, among them are the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations in America, the Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, which was specifically created to use the environment and global warming to justify transformation. Then you come through the cusp organizations into the world of the scene. And these are governments, government agencies, corporations, banks, media organizations, and so on. And in the world of the scene, it appears that they are operating individually. The decisions they make are random. And I'm talking about the people that run them and control them, not the vast majority of people who work for them, who have no idea what's going on. And so when decisions are made in the scene, we think governments have made them, government agencies. The media has decided by its own decision to go in this direction with a story. But actually, ultimately, it's all being orchestrated from the spider. And the vast majority of people who surf the web every day have no idea the web exists.